Gang, for over a year now, I've been talking about True Hemp Science full spectrum CBD oils and how they've reduced my anxiety and helped me get better sleep without waking up feeling foggy and confused. I've also talked about the full spectrum CBD bombs that relieved my hand pain last year and made playing piano and guitar much easier. Well, gang, today I'm going to tell you about True Hemp Science organic gummies made with full spectrum hemp oil that are available now. They come in two different gauges. There are 50 milligram ones that have 50 milligrams of CBD and 1.5 milligrams of THC. Then there are ones that are 100 milligrams of CBD and 5 milligrams of THC. Absolutely delicious lemon lime / orange flavors and also watermelon black cherry flavors. Super, super delicious. Now, they also have a complete line of full spectrum CBD products, including oils, tinctures, skincare lotions, sports rubs, chocolates, gummies, all kinds of stuff. Well, gang, How Did I Get Here has teamed up with True Hemp Science to bring you a very special offer that benefits all of us. Spend $100 or more at truehempscience.com and you will get a free gift. Just enter the code HDIGH at checkout. There's a little code placed there for you to enter it, HDIGH, and you will get a free gift with purchase. That's right. Go to truehempscience.com and balance your body and mind with True Hemp Science. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here are your hosts,
All right. Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host, and welcome to the show. I hope you guys all had a good weekend, whatever it is you did this weekend. I also want to thank you for listening to the show. I know you got a lot of choices out there, people. There's a lot of podcasts. Anything you're interested in, you can find it. And you've chosen to listen to episode 1263 of How Did I Get Here? So thank you for doing that. As I said, I hope you guys had a good weekend. I had a good weekend. Man, Skyrocket, the band I'm in, has been going to Houston every weekend. And we're going the next 2 weekends. In fact, just real quick before I tell you about my weekend, this coming Friday, April 7th, Skyrocket will be playing at Last Concert Cafe in Houston. It's going to be a great show. Always a good time out at Last Concert Cafe, man. Under the stars, dancing, living the dream in H-Town, downtown Houston. Find out more about the show. You can go to skyrockettheband.com if you want to find out what Skyrocket does. You can also look on there. There's lots of videos, lots of stuff. You can look at our tour dates and find out when we're playing. Get tickets for the show this Friday, April 7th in Houston at Last Concert Cafe. So we went this weekend and played a private show, a fundraiser for something called Space City Rodeo. I don't know what that is, but it was a whole gala fundraiser scene with, like, you know, the sit down dinner, then the auction guy, hey, sold to the guy on the feed, that kind of thing going on, and giant, you know, screens and a whole video display and a casino night outside of the ballroom we were playing. Complete insanity. It was a fun show. It was good. It was a little odd sound wise. Some rooms, you know, they put music, you know, in any place. They set up a stage, they put up a PA, and then they just run it. And sometimes that room is not prepared for sound. And I think that's what we ran into in that. There was a lot of weird echo stuff coming back to the band that made it kind of weird to play. Anyway, either way, it was a fun time. It was a good show. The band had a good time. I ended up staying in Houston with my grandmother, who turns 100 next month, and my two of my aunts. And we ended up making like air fryer food all day. Like, seriously, we made a frittata in the morning in the air fryer. I made my grandma these Hawaiian rolls, you know, those little Hawaiian rolls. I made her French toast with those. Those were really good. We made fried chicken in the air fryer. It was all unbelievable. I'm going through an air fryer thing. If you listen to the show for the last couple of weeks, it's pretty much all I'm talking about. So anyway, then I came home on Sunday, and I came home a little early, thinking I was going to run some errands on Sunday. And I took off to run some errands, and there was so much traffic downtown, I totally spaced out that the CMT Awards were this weekend. So Sunday night, Austin hosted its first major award show. As far as I know, I don't think there's ever been a big award show that was hosted by Austin. It was pretty exciting. I saw a lot of stuff on Instagram. I checked in a little in and out on the TV I don't really know a lot of the people. I'll be honest with you. But I did have a good time looking on Instagram. I saw Primo the Alien was walking the red carpet. Tamika Jones was walking the red carpet. So people got to do some exciting stuff. That's nice in our hometown. And then one of our hometown heroes, and a How Did I Get Here favorite, someone who's been on the show like 5 times, the amazing Jackie Venson sat in with Alanis Morissette playing You Ought to Know. Alanis Morissette and a couple of other people who I didn't know. And then she sat in with this other lady who I didn't know, and she played with that person. But they're on national TV. I was so proud to see Jackie doing it. It was great. It was very, very exciting. So it's nice to know that Austin can host an award show. I wonder what people are saying about it today, if they're thinking it was good or if it was bad. What did you think? Did you watch it? Do you think it was cool as shit to see someone like Jackie Venson on there? Let me know. Tweet at me. I'm at Johnny Gowdy on Twitter. Also, I'm at Johnny Gowdy on Instagram. You should follow me on there. Follow me on there. I'll follow you back. I promise. I think I will. I'll try to follow. Remind me to follow you back, and I'll follow you back. Also, like our Facebook page. How Did I Get Here? Get on there. You'll see photos of me with all kinds of guests and doing all kinds of things. Including today's guest. I have a great show for you guys today. A great show for you guys today. BMI Executive Director of Creative in Austin, Mitch Ballard, is my guest on the show today. Now, Mitch and I have become friends over the last few years. BMI opened an office here in Austin in 2019. And if you don't know much about BMI, let me tell you a little bit about them, okay? I'm going to read it from their website. So BMI is the bridge between songwriters and the businesses and organizations that want to play their music publicly. As a global leader in music rights management, BMI serves as an advocate for the value of music, representing over 20.6 million musical works created and owned by more than 1.3 million songwriters, composers, and publishers. They are a performing rights organization that collects the money that your songs make out there being performed. That's their job. All right. There's a couple of them in the world, but this is BMI and this is what they do. And Mitch, they just opened, as I said, they opened an office here in Austin in 2019. And Mitch Ballard is the executive director of creative there. So what does that mean? That means that Mitch assists BMI songwriters with their creative and administrative needs. And also, he helps coordinate showcases like the BMI Songwriter Series at Saxon Pub, educational seminars, and a lot more. Like you've seen BMI stages at Luck Reunion, at Austin City Limits Music Fest. He hosts all kinds of things around, and he partners with all kinds of different people. And Mitch himself is a musician and has been for a long, long time. He was a guitar player and tour manager for BJ Thomas for many, many years. He's a songwriter that's done co-writes with tons and tons of different people. He's been involved with all different kinds of businesses. He started a software business, Dev Digital, in the early 2000s. He was a global salesman for Glow Motion Technologies and worked the Super Bowl halftime shows for like Lady Gaga and Katy Perry and more people, tours for Tom Petty, Ariana Grande, 21 Pilots, Drake, Keith Urban, and many more. And for 15 years, he was a tour manager and guitar player and produced quite a few records for the legendary singer BJ Thomas. From Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, you know what I'm talking about. Amazing, man. Just such a fantastic dude, such an inspiring dude. He's out there seeing music all the time. He's really entrenched himself in this community since he moved here and opened this BMI office. So I want to thank BMI for letting me do this. I want to thank Mitch for having me over to the BMI offices. They have BMI offices here. You can find BMI at BMI.com. But if you want to get in touch with Mitch, if you live in Austin, you want to find out how to have a meeting with him, if you're a BMI writer, if you want to switch over to BMI from your current PRO, write him at Austin at BMI.com. That's Austin at BMI.com. And without further ado, please enjoy this conversation that I thoroughly enjoyed with my friend Mitch Ballard from BMI Austin. Let's get down.
Gowdy, BMI office.
BMI, this is the BMI headquarters.
BMI Texas headquarters.
Yeah, Texas headquarters. Yeah, because what I read is that you work with the state music department, or what, the music office.
Texas Music Office.
Texas Music Office.
Well,
the state music department.
We have a very close relationship with them.
Yeah.
But what we do here is day-to-day BMI business.
Yeah.
We're a creative office here.
Right.
There's BMI, a company, we have over 700 employees, and there's these different silos from administration to legal to licensing and everything. And then there's, of course, the creative department. So what we do here, here we are in March of 2023. We just celebrated, coming off of South by, celebrated our 4th year of having this office open. We had our opening during South by 2019. And so what we do here is we're strictly a creative office. So there's really 4 objectives. Day-to-day affiliate support. So that's existing affiliates. It's everything from somebody new who I had a lunch with today, and later this afternoon I have somebody very notable in town that's coming in. We have a few things to talk about, and everything in between. It's maybe someone who doesn't really even know what a PRO does, but they're starting to write songs and they're starting to perform. So we'll sit down and talk with them and tell them what BMI does. The second is look for new talent. I have... Paul Val in town is a great example. I met him through Omar Vallejo, and I got to talking to to Paul. I'm like, you affiliated with BMI or ASCAP? He goes, I'm not affiliated with anyone yet. And so he affiliated with BMI, and that's a great example of someone who I saw, was impressed with, developed a relationship, and they signed with BMI. So that's looking for new talent. I build a brand, and that is... started with we have a monthly showcase at the Saxon Pub.
Yeah, that's fantastic too, by the way.
Thank you. We started that in August of 2019. We've booked over 100 songwriters on that series, with probably 95% of them being within a 30, 40 mile radius of Austin. We've had some Dallas and Houston people come in, College Station. We have, and that's monthly, Saxon Pub, the first Monday of every month. We have a rap and hip-hop showcase a couple times a year, BMI Vibes. We have that at Still Austin Whiskey Company. And then we have another showcase called Sounds at Still, which is full band, pop rock, indie, R&B type thing. And we do that 3 times a year in partnership with Still Austin. And so that's building the brand.
Yeah.
And we look for new opportunities, which includes, I'm a Black Fred Sonic Guild advisor. We work with.
You're Austin on the board of ACC's music.
Yes.
College, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the curriculum board there for the music business department. Also, we're heavily involved with AMF. Mm-hmm. I've been a recording academy member for over 15 years, but when I got down here, I became involved as a board advisor for 2 years. And it's just different ways of being involved in this ecosystem that's already happening in Austin.
Right.
Through AMF, Sonic Guild / Black Fred, and these organizations that have deep roots in Austin. Yeah. And us coming in and seeing that as an opportunity to get in, meet these artists. I've met with over 400 artists in the past 4 years, and have a hands-on approach to what we do to help them understand what BMI does, where this money, people ask me, oh, you represent artists. Technically, we represent songwriters. Right. So if you're listening to, Black Puma's song, we are representing Eric and Adrian, as the songwriters, not Black Pumas as a band. Right. And so we represent songwriters, composers, which we have John Williams, who's one of the most successful in ever.
Did he win the Oscar the other night?
I don't know. I didn't watch.
I didn't either.
I'm sure.
But I know that there was some kind of thing I guess he's been nominated a bunch of times and hasn't won.
And he finally did? Was that the deal?
I hope so.
I hope so too. You think of the music he's done with Star Wars and E.T. and Close Encounters and Jaws. Jaws.
Jaws. Yeah.
Those 2 notes.
It's making the hair on my arm stand up.
Right. I think you and I are probably pretty close to the same age. And when Jaws came out, man, I didn't want to go to the beach at all. And
I had a different thing. I was scared of the pool drain, and I wasn't scared of the beach. Isn't that weird? Yeah. Somehow I thought Jaws was going to come out of the pool drain. It's more likely for him to do that than to get me out of Biscayne.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, Biscayne Bay. All right, so there is something I wanted to touch on that, and also ask you how this whole thing came together here. But I did want to say, like, being a person that's lived here, like, consistently for like 32 years now, I've seen in the 90s there were labels that came in. Mm-hmm. I know that BMG started a thing here. Then Arista had CreativeAustin here. ASCAP had a person. They didn't open an office so much, but they had a person here that was kind of not as involved, because I think it was kind of a part-time thing. Just like, hey, sign up as many songwriters as you can.
Yep.
But I've never seen any, like, you were maybe here, because I met you before the pandemic time, because then there's a whole year that we never saw each other or did anything. But before that, I'd never seen anybody have such roots. Were you here for, like, did you know this whole area and this whole scene, or did you just come in and really just go meet everybody you possibly could?
A little bit of both. I grew up south of Corsicana in Fairfield, a little small town on I-45. All my Ballard family is from Mahia, which is very well known for Cindy Walker, who's in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yes.
The very first famous female songwriter ever, and who is BMI as well. But my dad moved here, I think probably 1977, when he and my mom split. He moved to Austin.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time here. I went to summer camp at Friday Mountain Boys Camp, which is on 1826, going out towards Salt Lick Barbecue. There's a big Hindu temple out there now.
Yeah.
And there used to be nothing when you turned off at 290 and went down 1826, until you got to Friday Mountain Boys Camp.
Yeah.
There was one church and like two houses, and that was it. So I spent a lot of time in this area. And then, of course, getting into music, in high school, I was listening to Gary P. Nunn, Jerry Jeff Walker, Rusty Weir, all those guys. And, by the time I got to move to Nashville in 1992, after graduating University of North Texas, of course, Robert Earl Keen, started listening to him. And 20 plus years ago, Pat and Corey and Wade and Randy, and saw all that happen.
Yeah.
So I was, very familiar with what was going on down here.
Yeah.
Had a lot of friends in the business down here. John Michael Whitby and I, he was with the Sleep at the Wheel, and then Randy Rogers, and I've been with George Strait's, Ace and the Whole Band, for over 10 years. We've been friends 25 years plus.
Okay.
Kyle Park, country artist, here in Texas. We've been friends 15 years. I used to stay at his house when I, came to Austin over the past 15 years. So, and then a bunch of the other guys. Benny McArthur from Ace and the Whole Band. I've known him since I was a senior in high school. So I knew a lot of people down here.
Yeah.
And so when I got the job, it's like, hey guys, I moved back home to Texas. Here's what I'm doing with BMI. And so I already had an established network of 50 people.
That's great.
And that includes booking agents too. Chad Kadelka I'd known for 15 years, and people like that. And then
what about like Brendan? Because you and Brendan have similar backgrounds.
We do, but I didn't know him until I was in the running for the BMI job.
Interesting.
So, Texas Music Office, Brendan.
Yeah, Brendan
Austin
Anthony,
Music
great guy too.
Yes, he is. Austin Music Foundation, Nick Shuley, for 3, 4, 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's still to this day. But up until the BMI office and I got this job, they did a full court press in New York, LA, Nashville to try to get more established industry to move here. And so that's how I met Nick, and how I met Brendan as well was through the interview process of, I met them in December of 2018 and got this job in February of 2019.
Okay.
I'd come home for Christmas, and the BMI guys that I was, Mason Hunter and Jody Williams, that I was going through the interview process with. Mason's a assistant vice president. Jody at that time was vice president. He's since retired and gone back from BMI and gone back into publishing. But they're like, hey, why are you down there? Connect with Brendan Anthony, connect with Nick Shuley, and they're a huge reason why BMI is here is through their campaigning to get more industry to move here. And so that's how I met them.
That's
Brendan.
good. That's always been such a question here in Austin, is like, why isn't there more big industry here? Why isn't it more like a Nashville kind of thing? Not so much like LA or New York, but like, like a bringing people to the world that are from here. And like I was saying, I've never seen those big businesses come down here and really be able to stick it out. What is it that you think is, because what I see you doing is extremely successful.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, the numbers that you have, the relationships that you have with everyone. You know, I walked into the office today, you're walking down the office, down the hall with a dude that I love that was in our program that I've written with and stuff that I really, really respect. So you're out there and you're doing all of that stuff. Like, what else do you think it is that is able to make this have such roots already?
I think part of it is, I think not part. I think the majority of it has to do with BMI's commitment to coming down here and planting a flag and having deeper roots. You know, and before you leave, I'm going to show some pictures to you that we have in our conference room here. You know, BMI's been coming back and forth to Austin since 1970.
Sure.
And I have pictures that Mike Tollison gave me of a music business conference BMI did here in 1974. And there's Doug Somm, and there's Willie, and Alvin Crow and such, and, you know, these legends
right.
Of the Austin and Texas, you know, music scene. And so we have roots here. It's just we've never had brick and mortar office.
Right.
You know, we always had somebody coming back every 6 to 8 weeks. But, you know, I think what the big success here is BMI going, you know, we want these roots to be deeper.
Right.
And we're going to make that a commitment to do that. I'm not sure with Eros to Texas. You know, I was living in Nashville when that happened. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Or BMG. Obviously, it didn't work. But I think BMI's commitment is really what makes it, what cemented it in here.
Yeah, that's a good word to say.
And, you know, I do have a little bit different perspective on, you know, the music business here. I think what gets overlooked sometimes is what's been homegrown here. You know, you look at how big of a player C3 is, you know, and they have artist management and such. And I think that story doesn't get told enough.
No.
C3, 888, Why and How Management, 888 Management, Floating Leaf Entertainment. I mean, these are major management companies. 10 Atoms, True Grit, and, you know, Messina Touring is here as well. There's some major players in the music business here that I think sometimes don't get into the narrative as much because they're homegrown.
Yeah.
But publishing companies, labels, that's really kind of what's missing.
Right.
Is that piece. And there's labels talking about moving here. There's several that have, you know, talked to me and asked a lot of questions. I've sent them a lot of data. There's a publishing company, both major, that have actually connected with our commercial real estate agent. We'll see what happens, you know, from there. They were wanting to get pricing on office space and such, which, you know, I think is a huge positive.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing a shift where more industry now, especially when they learn that there is a 888 and a Why and How and a 10 Atoms and all these people that are here.
Yeah.
Chad Kadelka is now with CAA, you know, one of the largest booking agencies in the world, and he's based here.
And C3, they even do like the Lollapaloozas all over the world and everything, right? And
exactly.
Even more festivals that I probably didn't even realize.
Yeah, and that's based out of here. You know, we are heavily involved, this office, going back to our mission here, we're heavily involved in the booking of BMI has a stage at Lollapalooza, has a stage at ACL Fest, and of course we had 6 different events this year for South by, and so this office is very heavily involved in that. We were a key voice in getting Harry Adokwa booked, and Austin Meade, who lives in Canyon Lake area, of getting those 2 artists on the BMI stage in Lollapalooza. Obviously the artists that get booked here at ACL Fest, and
awesome.
We did a Texas showcase, Howdy Texas, that kicked off everything for South by, that featured 9 BMI affiliates from Austin and Dallas. So, but yeah, you have these companies that, you know, Lollapalooza, where they have like 4 or 5 of them around the world now.
Yeah.
And Brazil and all these other places, and, you know, that got started here.
Yeah.
Look at South by. South by started here in 1987. And that's one of the biggest music conferences in the entire world, and it got started here. So some of those homegrown stories,
Yeah.
sometimes get overlooked, and maybe it's looking over the fence and thinking the grass is greener over there, and
Yeah.
there's not as much grass maybe over here, but there's a lot of success stories out of here.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. It's funny because you were talking about how things have changed out there in where the Salt Lick is and all that stuff. When I was driving in on Riverside today from Houston, and I looked at downtown when I was at a light, I was like, if you showed me a picture of this skyline and said, what city is this? I'd be like, I don't know. That's how much it's changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is great. And it's going to lose some of its innocence. And I think that's one of the things that, like, some of the older, even older than our, like, in the classes above us, guys that were seniors maybe when we were freshmen or something in the music scene, like, those guys get a little like, oh man, they're going to take away the whatever. You know what I mean? Because Austin does have a little, like, dirty jeans and, like,
It does.
like, staying away from the man.
I saw that happen in Nashville. I saw Music Row I saw Nashville turn. I moved there in 1992. It was a sleepy town, and now it's like Austin. It's booming, and there was maybe 2 or 3 tall buildings in downtown Nashville. Now there's 40.
Yeah.
And I saw Music Row go from 2 one-way streets, 16th and 17th Avenue, of these little buildings and these little quaint old houses that have been turned into publishing companies and record labels and all these things. Now it's apartments and such, and I've seen the same thing happen there. And, you know, Nashville's not the same town it was when I moved there in 1992. Austin is definitely not, you know, the same that it was 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right. Before I want to talk a little bit more about the BMI stuff. I did not realize that it was founded in 1939. It's almost 100 years old at this point.
Yeah. I loved, you know, we're in our 84th year, and I love telling people that Willie's been with us 64 of those 84. You know, you look at an artist's career, artists that write songs, the longest relationship most of them ever have in their career is with their performing rights organization. Willie's been with us 64 years. He's had multiple managers, multiple record labels, multiple booking agencies. That just naturally happens.
Right.
In, you know, he's had the same manager since the 90s, but that hadn't changed. But, you know, before then he had different managers and such, and that typically happens. But the performance rights organization is typically the longest relationship an artist has in their music career.
Yeah.
And 64 years with Willie.
It's not really set up to get, like, there's no rip off on either side. It's just, I mean, for those of you that are listening that might not know what these companies do, but you've seen BMI every time you've gone to a restaurant on the door when you're opening it, and like every club, and you're like, what is, and in the songwriting credits, and some people are like, what the hell is that?
So we collect, what we collect is originally started out as radio, TV, and performances that are in live music venues, restaurants, those type of things, general licensing. And so per federal copyright law, it is federal copyright law that if you play a person's song, any music, you know, that music belongs to someone. It was created by someone and it belongs to someone.
Right.
And per federal copyright law, you have to pay a licensing fee. Right. And those licensing fees go to ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and those get distributed to the songwriters and publishers. So it's radio, public performances, TV, and now it's streaming. It's Spotify, it's Pandora, it's Apple Music, it's TikTok, it's Facebook, it's Instagram. So if I go do an Instagram story and put a Johnny Goudie song on there, that data gets sent back to your PRO, and they know to pay you for it. So whenever you're going through somebody's Instagram story and you hear them put music on there, they have a license with BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, and they have to pay for those streams, even on those stories. A big change this last year before, was we got a license in place with Peloton.
Oh, wow.
So think about that. You get on your exercise machine, and you have this library of all this music that you can listen to.
Yeah.
And so Peloton has to pay a licensing fee to BMI for that.
That's amazing.
And streaming has overtaken, you know, all the other forms of consumption.
Right.
You know, the songwriters and publishers also make what is called a mechanical royalty.
Right.
And that literally goes back to the role of paper that you put in the mechanical piece of a player piano.
Right.
They still use that term. That's
Yeah.
what a mechanical license is. And so that's if somebody buys a physical product.
Right.
Which in the days when people were going gold, platinum, double platinum and such, that was a large stream of songwriting and publishing royalty that came through from physical product.
Right.
But obviously that has changed drastically. So, but those are collected by, another agency. There's also digital mechanicals. So if you go purchase a song for $1.29 on Apple Music, then they are required by copyright law to pay now, as of January 1st, 12 cents per song sold. And so that's collected by the Mechanical Licensing Collective. So they do digital mechanicals. So, if you write a song, it can seem really complicated because there's BMI that collects for this certain piece if we release a song.
Right.
There's a Mechanical Licensing Collective. You're going to put it out on vinyl.
Yeah.
I've seen some cassette tapes out again.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I don't even have a cassette player anymore. But people are putting out kind of as a kitsch thing and a nostalgic piece. And there's also royalties there that go to the songwriter. And a big piece of what I do here is educate on songwriters on where their income comes from.
Right.
It's pretty cut and dry that a band plays at Saxon Pub,
Right.
They're going to get paid X, or they're going to get a split of the door. There's merchandise, they're going to sell that. That math is pretty much cut and dry.
Right.
What a lot of times songwriters don't understand is what their songs themselves generate. And that's through streaming.
Right.
That is also BMI Live. If you go perform a live show, you can go into BMI, and the other PROs have that,
And submit your set list.
and submit your set list, and you'll get paid on that. And so, and you need to be signed up with the Mechanical Licensing Collective and all these little these streams of revenue, these avenues of revenue that songwriters sometimes don't understand, that you can make money at the MLC, you can make money with BMI Live and these different pieces. And I tell these writers that, one stream is like one raindrop. It's not a lot of water. But a hit song is a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
It's still made up of individual raindrops.
Right.
So you got to make sure you know where to put your bucket so you can collect all that water. You
Yeah.
can collect all that money.
Yeah.
And, you'll turn around. There was a great success story. Shane Smith and the Saints, they're based, here in Austin. They had a song that was 6 years old that got placed in back-to-back episodes of Yellowstone, the same song. I think it had like 308,000 streams after 6 years.
Wow.
I guarantee you, the last time I looked, it was 28 million.
Jesus.
It's probably well over 30 now. And so, you could wake up one day and have a song of yours hockey stick in popularity and theoretically not have all these things in place to where you're making as much money as you possibly can. And that includes just registering your song in your BMI account.
Right.
You have to have your song registered in your account. Otherwise,
They don't know it's yours.
they don't know who to pay. There's 3
Right.
Mitch Ballards with BMI.
Oh.
Of course, there's me as a songwriter. There's one in California who I actually know. We've joked about writing a song together one day. Who'd you write that with, Mitch Ballard? And there's one in New Jersey. So if I don't register my song and it gets streamed on Spotify or Pandora, Apple Music, and they send the data to ASCAP BMI CSAC, they go, there's BMI has 3 Mitch Ballards, but none of them have this song registered, so
Yep.
they're not going to take that money because they don't know. You don't know who to pay.
Right,
So
right.
register your songs, do your live set list, do the mechanical license, all these little small things that just ensure that you're making sure, coins aren't falling in the couch cushions.
Yeah. When you were talking earlier about streaming and and Facebook and collecting the stuff off of that of songs that are on there, what about when people were like doing live streams and they played covers? Was there any way to?
Yeah, there was a rub on that, and you can go back and read news stories on it because after about 6-9 months, everybody's like, all right, it kind of seemed, this is kind of my thought. Again, they were kind of letting people do it because pandemic had shut everything down. I'm not sure if that's fact, but if you go do a cover on a live stream on Facebook, you're technically supposed to go to the publisher and get the rights to use that and get a license for it.
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But yes, if you do your original music, You're the publisher.
Right.
You know, and Facebook does pay a licensing fee to BMI. It's an annual fee. So
That's great.
yeah.
That's a good thing to know. And people listening that we're doing live streams or still continue to do live streams. There's still a lot of people doing that.
And the BMI Live piece too. I mean, I've looked at numbers, and the bigger an artist gets and the bigger rooms they start playing, it starts turning into some real money.
Really?
Yeah. And you know, it's knowing where these income streams are and make sure you're collecting as much money as possible.
Yeah.
And because once you get them into place, you get your songs registered in your BMI account. You get it registered with the MLC. You can set up a set list in BMI Live so it's quick and easy.
Yeah.
Because every artist has their core 8, 10, 12 songs. They always do. So you put that in a set list and you just drag and drop it over. And you can go back 6 months. So you can, once a week, sit down, turn the game on, crack open beer, and do your BMI Live.
Yeah.
And so you make sure you're collecting all this money because the goal is to make a career out of music. And that be your only job. So, understanding those revenue streams helps you to collect as much money as possible so you can, hopefully this will be a full-time gig if, for people that aren't doing it full-time already.
Right. It's funny that you say that because, and people can find out more about all of this stuff at BMI.com. Fantastic website. I went through it. Great. Learning how it all started and all of that stuff is really fascinating. And what they've been able to do to get people paid, for their music.
And we publish these numbers, and it's closing in on $2 billion a year that's distributed. So you can see the economic impact, and that's just BMI.
Yeah,
it's not counting other PROs here in the U.S. So you can see the economic impact that the songwriting, composition, and publishing piece of a song has. Another great example I like to use is Dolly Parton, "I Will Always Love You," which she wrote by herself. So if you stream her version, she gets paid as the artist, she gets paid as the songwriter and the publisher. If you stream the Whitney Houston version, Dolly gets paid as the songwriter and the publisher. If you play the Vince Gill version, she keeps getting paid as the songwriter on this. And you write a big enough song that can be 30, 40, 50 years later can be significant. There's songs I look up sometimes that are 40 years old, and to see what they're still generating. Yeah. And, and when a copyright law too is death plus 70 years. And so after a person passes away, that songwriting income still goes to their heirs, whoever they designate as part of their estate planning. And it's also the death of the last songwriter. So, you take a Lennon and McCartney song. Oh yeah. The clock on the compositions that they wrote together, clock hadn't started ticking yet until Paul passes away. Then it's 70 years. Yeah. So it's if you write big enough songs, that ends up being, taking care of your family and your heirs for a long time. Yeah.
Mark Volman from the Turtles told me that. I worked at Whole Foods, and he came in and he had like one of those. Remember those Love and Feelings tours? I did it one time when I was out working with BJ Thomas.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, dude.
We did several shows with Mark.
Oh, you did? Yeah. He seems like really nice guy. Yeah, he sat down and talked to me for a while, but that's what I walked away from, knowing that. One more thing about Austin, like when you got here, were you surprised at all at the wide variety of music there is here now, sort of like prominently to me, it's different than it was like even 10 years ago. Sure.
I was surprised at the growing pop and rap and hip hop scenes here. I knew that the blues, the rock, country and such have always been, been the bedrocks. Yeah. The staples here, but to see even in the 4 years that I've been here, what's happened in the rap and hip hop scene has been huge. Totally. And the pop scene as well. Yeah. And that's starting to get noticed a lot more.
A whole lot more.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great pop artists here, and to see what they're doing and see that genre rise up. Same thing with rap and hip hop artists. I think hopefully we're going to get a big success story out of the rap and hip hop world like Dallas and Houston have had.
Yeah.
They've had those big success stories, but Austin hadn't really had a big nationwide success story, rap and hip hop, yet.
I've had conversations with hip hop guys from here asking why is it that there's, and they basically say because there's not an Austin sound.
Right.
Like all of those scenes are based on like a certain, even if it's a drum machine or the same sampler everyone's using.
That's it.
And all that stuff. There's no, it's all so diverse within itself here that it hasn't been able to be exported as a sound. Yep. But there are people that blow my mind, like Kid Jones and DZ Brown, that just really like floor me.
Yep.
And they're up there with all of the people that you see and hear, that are out there doing it on a bigger level.
They are, and Quinn NFN had a major deal out of LA when I first started here in 2019. He was on 10K Records, and he's still making big waves. The Tita, EC Main, Lady Earth, Staciny. And there's a lot of great talent in that scene.
On a personal level, you got married and you've had a child.
I did.
And I'll tell you, I don't think I've been to many shows that I haven't seen you at. You're a busy man.
Go to a lot of shows.
You have to.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of this job. It's a fun part as well. There's nothing better than going to a live show. Yeah. And my daughter's 7 months old now, and she's already been like 10 shows. She came into ACL Fest backstage on a golf cart at 6 weeks old.
That is awesome.
She's getting her diaper changed on Kevin Fowler's tour bus while he's on stage. Kevin's like, my house is your house. Make yourself at home. She's like went in the deep end of the pool on that, and so she's already been to. I did a writers round with Kimmy Rhodes, Bob Livingston, George Inslee, and Monty Warden back in October. So she came to. She's actually seen me on stage, which is fun.
That's awesome.
I play guitar for her a lot. She gets really excited when I pull out the guitar.
When I was listening to that playlist of songs that you had written, have you ever written with Monty? Because the first thing I thought was like, God, I bet Monty and Mitch would write an amazing song.
We have been threatening to do it for years.
Because it seems like you know how to use the big money chords. Like it's not G-D, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
DGE or whatever with you. It's like real, there's some expensive, they're like Western swing stuff.
Yeah, I've got a big Western swing background, and also Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole and Count Basie and all that big swing stuff. I was a trumpet player up until I graduated high school and got offered scholarships to North Texas, to Texas A&M, but I didn't want to play trumpet after college anymore. So I always really loved all that big band stuff, and started playing guitar when I was 12, and I just kind of naturally started wanting to know what those swing and jazz chords were. But Monty and I have talked about it, and we just need to set it, put it on the calendar. But the Danny Lee cuts, that Masquerade of a Fool album. We've got cuts on the same album together. We just didn't write them together. He's got a couple of cuts on that album too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we have cuts on the same album, just not as co-writers.
When you went from music to North Texas?
No, actually, I didn't.
Okay.
I was a broadcast journalism major with a double minor in political science and business, and initially thought I was going to go to law school, be an entertainment attorney. And I graduated college, and I was really tired of being in school. So I moved to Nashville. I've been playing in bands in Dallas, been writing songs. I started playing my first band when I was 14.
Okay.
And it was a small radio station in Fairfield. KNES, it's still there. And it was a little 3,000-watt station, and I started DJing there my junior year in high school.
Okay.
And so I worked commercial radio all the way through college, and so that's where the broadcast journalism major came from.
That's
started
amazing.
doing a little TV work as well.
What years were you up there in?
I was up there 89 to 92.
So were you like a 10 Hands fan? Did you go see them this weekend?
Oh yeah, I didn't go see them this weekend.
I was so bummed. Every time they've come over the last few years, I've been playing in.
those guys, Tin Hands and Brave Combo, were both really big in Denton.
Oh, yeah.
So I did a quick 2 years at Sam Houston State in Huntsville, and then transferred up to North Texas. So I was at North Texas 3.5 years, and didn't do my full college career there, but graduated in August of '92 and packed everything up and moved to Nashville. And it's weird looking back on it now, because my dad goes, "What do you want to do when you graduate?" I said, "I want to move to Nashville and work in the music business and write songs." And he goes, "Who do you know in Nashville?" I said, "Nobody." He goes, "What's your plan?" I'll go there, find an apartment, and pack my stuff up and move. And this was before the internet and all these things. I got an apartment locator magazine mailed to me. The girl I went to college with, her sister worked for the Country Music Association. She called her sister and she sent me an apartment book. And that's really, she circled like 3 or 4 areas, and she goes, if the apartments aren't in that circled area, you don't want to live in that part of town.
Yeah.
And I packed everything up and moved to Nashville. I didn't know one person, and just started knocking on doors. When my dad said, "What's your plan?" I said, "Get an apartment, start knocking on doors, start meeting people." And he kind of paused for a second. He goes, "All right." He goes, "Your graduation gift is 6 months rent."
Oh, that's good.
And I used about 5 months and 29 days of it to just meet people, and then started a job. And, that's been 30 whatever years later.
It's interesting that you've been
32.
able to balance the artistic and business. A lot of people don't have that ability. It's another thing you have in common with Brendan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think part of it too, and this happened to me for about a decade. You start getting, I didn't write much for 10 years and wrote all the time. And then, the business side kind of took over. And that was one of the things when I got back here to Texas. I'm like, I want to, even if it's just writing by myself, I want to spend more time writing again, because that's a part of who we are as a creative person.
Yeah.
You have to write. You have these ideas and they need to come out.
Yeah.
And, creative mind is like a sponge. You're either soaking things in or squeezing something out. You're either observing and listening, and then that thing pops, that idea hits, and then you sit there and squeeze it out of your brain and make it into a song. And, yesterday I was in San Antonio with my wife, and she's like, "Where's your head right now? What are you doing?" Not in a bad way. She's like, "Where are you right now?" I said, "Man, I got that. I just came up with a line for that song." And she's like, "Oh, that's awesome." And it hits you, and it really consumes you for a while while you're chewing on the right words and how to put them together. And it's a cool process.
There was one that there is a huge sort of like diversity of music in there. The Kristen Davies music is completely different than the Western swing stuff on there and stuff like that.
That's straight rock.
Yeah, straight rock.
Yeah, we sat down, and believe it or not, we've written 3 times and wrote 3 songs, and they were all 3 on her project.
That's great.
And, first band I played in was a rock band. We played Ozzy and Black Sabbath and Motley Crue and all that stuff. And
you were a shredder, obviously. A little bit of one?
A little bit of one,
okay, yeah.
At one point, but, now arthritis is... I never was a great lead player, but I can sit down and learn something and play it note for note. But I can't come up with a solo off the top of my head, but I can learn one.
So on the live B.J. Thomas Hooked on a Feeling that you produced, is that you playing the electric sitar?
Nope. Oh. Nope, that was one of the band members. I just did acoustic stuff.
Okay.
Just fatten up the track.
So funny that sound of that instrument, because it's different than the regular sitar.
Yeah.
It has a very distinct sort of like sound, but it's also... Do you know off the top of your head what year his version of that song came out?
I think his was 68, I believe. It was before the Blue Swede version. And I actually got to play the electric sitar that Reggie Young played on that record in 1968.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I grew up listening to BJ's music.
Yeah.
In fact, where we're sitting here right now, you look over and there's a Scepter Records 45 of Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
Yeah.
You're sitting right next to it. Let's give a play-by-play for the people listening.
Yeah.
So, that 45 right there, you see a star drawn on the A side?
Yeah.
So before I could read, my mom would buy me the songs at the record store that I liked, and she'd draw a star on the A side so I knew which side to put up on the record player. So that's Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head that I've had as a 45 since before I could read. And so that had been 1969, 70, 71.
How amazing to get to play with your...
Yeah. And get to produce 2 albums on him, get to tour for 8 years with him. And then he was over at my house one day, and he goes, man, we were waiting on, we had a couple hours to kill before bus call. And because he would fly in from Arlington to Nashville, and that's where we did bus call, if we weren't doing a fly date.
Right.
And he goes, man, you got that 45 with the star drawn on it still? I said, yeah. And I went and pulled it out, and he looked at it, and he pulled out his Sharpie from his shoulder bag and autographed, and you can see it says that was year 2000. He always used to put the year on it, so that's really special. I got that 45 I had since I was a toddler.
Sorry, that must have been a hard loss.
Yeah, it was, man. He and I,
it's a mentor and
friend. And sometimes it seemed like we were brothers.
Yeah.
And sometimes he was like another dad, because he had 3 daughters.
Yeah.
And he told me that before he passed away. He's like, man, you're like a son to me.
Wow.
He was the greatest, though.
Yeah.
And he's still, up until he passed away, I saw him several months before the cancer diagnosis. He played the One World Theater.
Okay.
And I went out and saw him, and he still sang those songs in the original key. And, those high notes on Hooked on a Feeling and all that still nailed them.
Yeah. I mean, he sounded good in 2000 whenever you did that live record. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic.
One of the best singers ever. And one of those guys, too, that he never had that name recognition. And he and I talked about that some. And, because you say, people go, B.J. Thomas, and they kind of turn their head, and you go, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Oh, yeah, Hooked on a Feeling.
Yeah.
Another Somebody Done Somebody Wrong song.
That was my favorite of his songs when I was a kid.
And, Two-Story House, New Looks, Two-Car Garage, New Looks from an Old Lover, Whatever Happened to Old-Fashioned Love. All of a sudden it's like, oh, there's 14 hit songs or more.
Yeah.
And then people go, oh, yeah, I remember all of those songs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 54, and I do remember, like, him. He was a guy. And I'm that voice on the radio and hearing his Hooked on a Feeling and that electric sitar. That's what I was going to say, is the electric sitar just reminds me of hearing AM radio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just reminds me of that sound.
It was only on a few songs back then. It was on Hooked on a Feeling. It was on Paint It Black.
Yeah.
And
there was a couple of other ones that were kind of like.
Yeah, and then the 80s, was it Paul Young did Every Time You Go Away.
Yeah.
It was originally a Hall & Oates. Yeah, originally a Hall & Oates cut. I got a cool Spotify playlist I'll send you.
Okay.
It's called Before They Were Hits.
Uh-huh.
And it's all of these songs, like Fleetwood Mac doing Black Magic Woman before Santana did it.
Oh, wow, yeah.
On a side note, I'll shoot you that over. It's pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Have you met Greg Raleigh?
I have not.
I met him the other
day.
day.
He's BMI.
He is.
In the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
He's real nice. I met him at that thing that Graham Weber and Graham Wilkinson did out at Hotspot.
Yeah.
The Unity show.
Yeah. What a great singer. And
yeah, he's a really nice guy. Very, very cool. Looks, so you can tell. Like I walked into that place and it was early in the thing, and I looked across it and I was like, that is Greg Raleigh. Yeah. I know
that's a cool thing too,
like.
man. You have, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You have Chris Layton in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Kathy Valentine, all living here in town. That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is really cool. There's all kinds of film people too. I mean, look at all the stuff that has happened. I mean, even Joe Rogan, he's brought a lot to the town I've never seen him anywhere though.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have like Paul Oakenfold moved here.
Right.
He lives out in Bastrop. I mean, he was like one of the original ever DJs.
That you introduced me to him.
Yeah.
At a thing in the house.
That was an AMF deal.
An AMF deal.
Yeah. It was curated, hey, come meet Paul Oakenfold reception deal. And what a great dude. He travels so much. When he comes to town, we love going downstairs to Perla's and grabbing lunch and catching up. But there's a lot of these people that live here that some people don't realize. Paul Simon and Edie Brickell.
I was just about to say, Paul Simon.
Yeah, living outside of Wimberley.
He went on my bandmate's radio show on the Wimberley Valley radio show and did an interview with him for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
He just went and said, that's just some guy in town. I'm going to the little radio station in Town Square to talk to the dudes.
Yeah, right. And it's all glass, It's I've been on that show. Plus, I live outside of Wimberley, so go there.
You do?
But That's probably the weirdest thing out of the entire pandemic that happened. Is it was the Thursday before Easter, so things were just shut down just like 2 or 3 weeks. Steve McCreary, Collings Guitars, calls me about 9:30 at night, and he goes, "Hey, just got off the phone with Paul Simon, and he's been hearing about everything that's going on, with the musicians not being able to work in Austin. He wants to do something to help raise money, and he wasn't sure where the money should go and such. And I suggested that he talk to you, and he said, "Do you mind if I connect you via email with Paul?" I said, "Yeah, that's fine." I said, "Let's give him my cell number, if he wants." Johnny, 20 minutes later, my phone rings. It's a New York area code, and I go, "Hi, this is Mitch." He goes, "Hey, Mitch, this is Paul Simon," and we talked for 45 minutes, had a couple more calls, connected him with Matt Beiser and those guys, and that's how that benefit for Austin, that's how those seeds got planted.
That's awesome.
And he told me he was looking for he was looking at a ranch outside of Wimberley.
Yeah.
And then I ran into Kevin Fowler a couple of weeks later. He goes, "Man, you got to come out and see the ranch. I'm getting ready to sell it."
Oh, to Paul Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, but it's Rupert Neve living in Wimberley. I mean, there's all these people that decided to call the Hill Country home because it's such a great area.
You like it out there though?
I love it. Absolutely love it.
I live like on Riverside, like in town, and I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, I don't think it would be that bad to have lots of room and like quiet, not the freeway right next to where I live.
It's almost an hour drive in, so it's a 2-hour commute every day. But I have friends that live in Houston and Dallas. It's 51 miles to my house on the nose from the BMI office there. I have friends in Dallas and Houston that live 8 miles from their house, and they spend 2 hours driving every day. And, I grew up in the country, spent 30 years living in cities, and it's nice to be back out where it's quiet and dark. And,
sure,
we have chickens and dogs and cats running around and all that good stuff. I don't care what, I don't care what they charge for eggs at H-E-B. I get about 10 a day at the house, so we're all good.
Well, dude, I want to cover some other stuff about this sort of technology side of your business, and it was, I guess it was on. When did I email you on like Friday or Saturday or something about that? About sending me. Okay, so I had found an interview that you had done with Mark Fort. Yeah, who I've loved since the 90s, Mark. Since I met him. He's just a lovely human being and talented man. And I didn't realize that. I'm trying to the company before I forget.
Dev Digital.
Glow
Motion.
Glow Motion.
Yeah,
that's the one I'm talking about. That you had stuff to do with like these Super Bowls that reintroduced the live performance to like. There was like a superstar performance in 2004, and all of a sudden like there was a boob exposed, and it got weird.
Right.
And then they just like put on The Who and like. Yeah. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. But then all of a sudden, like in the late 2000s, you had that Katy Perry one that had like the dancing shark thing that really was like the most talked about meme and everything, like the most trending thing for a while. And then that Lady Gaga thing, which they made a Netflix documentary about her that sort of culminates in that performance.
Yep. So
what did you do?
In 1997, I was working for an artist management company.
Yeah.
And we sat down one day, we were talking about how to get more attention to our artists. Back then, you just had a fan club newsletter that went out once a quarter. And I sat down, I think it's probably the smartest thing that ever came out of my mouth. I looked at the guys that I worked for. I said, guys, like I said, this is 1997. I said, I don't know what this new internet thing is, but it's cool and we need to be on it. And they said, all right, it's your idea. You figure out how to do it. So I learned how to do basic websites.
Oh, so you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in 2008, I was looking to get off the road. I was on the road with Colin Ray. And I'll make this as short as possible.
No. Go ahead.
And had an opportunity with a guy for us to acquire 8 programmers in India and own the company.
Right.
So they're offshore but not outsourced. And we grew that to now it's 125 employees. And we started out doing websites. Then we started doing other types of programming. But it's all web-based programming, and then iPhones and Androids came out, and we started building apps.
Right.
So we built all of the software that Glow Motion runs on. So there's a whole back end piece. So Glow Motion started out with light up wristbands. In fact, I have 3,000 of them sitting at my house right now because they are doing 3,000 wristbands at the CMT Awards this coming Sunday.
Oh, cool.
So my old colleagues called me up and said, man, do you mind if we just send these wristbands to your place? I'm like, not at all. So it's light up wearables.
Yeah.
Wristbands. Then we went to medallions and then custom pieces, beach balls and then custom pieces. So we built all the software that makes different patterns and things run on for Glow Motion.
Okay.
And so then I came on board with Glow Motion to do their global sales management and global operations. And so that's the Glow Motion piece there after leaving day to day with Deb Digital
Right.
to work with them. And so we did beach balls for the Katy Perry halftime show. When she comes out riding the lion at the beginning, there's people holding beach balls up.
Uh-huh.
And then for Lady Gaga, we built torches out of PVC.
Yeah.
And we have an LED piece that goes inside of it. And so we could bitmap these. So each wristband becomes a pixel. And so if you lay out 30,000 of them, which we have at a stadium, you can run words around the rings of the seats and put pictures on it, like the Pepsi logo at the end of Lady Gaga, or I think it's Justin Timberlake was bitmapped.
Right.
And
wow.
So Justin Timberlake, we did wristbands, and then for the VIP section of Pepsi, which is a couple of thousand, we had medallions. And there's that famous selfie picture of the kid, that he takes a selfie with Justin as he's coming down the stairs in his section, and he's wearing a Glow Motion wristband and a medallion. So he was in the VIP, he's in the Pepsi section. So then with Maroon 5, we did these LED panels that were, I think they were 12 inch by 12 inch, and the people would hold them up and put them together, so it became a big TV screen out on the field and such. So that was Glow Motion. With Drake, we did spheres that go up and down on winches for the Boy Meets World and the Summer 16 tour. Tom Petty, we did his last tour. If you were at the Pink show at ACL last year, there were these big spheres going up and down in the back of the stage. That's all Glow Motion.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an interesting sort of like side track or what side hustle. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that tech piece just kind of clicked in my brain. I didn't know why, but it did. It's not something I trained for. It's just I kind of got it. So,
did you ever, when you were going for political science, I know I'm going back, did you ever want to work in politics, or you just wanted to be a lawyer?
Yeah, it was on the lawyer side.
Yeah.
In my senior year in college, my advisor actually let me take a graduate level pre-law class as part of my senior year. So yeah, it was just the lawyer side.
Okay, man, what a fascinating world. So when you started doing those websites, I read that you had started doing websites for one of the guys. Do you remember the promise? When I was reading that, I was like, I remember like 1998, my ex-wife was working with a bunch of tech people, and they're like, oh, you need to get a website. We need to get this domain name. And I was just like, I don't know. It was at the time where she used to print out emails to me from her work and bring them home to me for me to read, like 1997, 1998. My Uncle Chuck's CompuServe account and all that stuff.
MindSpring and all that thing. I still have my AOL address. I haven't logged in a long time. I gotta just hold on to it for nostalgia.
Yeah, definitely.
But I remember sitting behind the computer, and a guy goes, "Oh, this is a browser." You open it up, and it was Internet Explorer, and he goes, "This is the internet." I'm like, "This has to be the absolute coolest thing I've ever seen." Everything's at your fingertips, and
it just got more at your fingertips. And God, you think about a time when we were touring, there was you had like a Discman.
Yeah.
That's what you had, a Discman.
Oh yeah. Or you had a drawer in the bus that had 40 videotapes.
Right.
And I was always Caddyshack and History of the World Part 1, all these funny stuff.
Yeah.
And Young Frankenstein, and you just watched them over and over on the tour bus, or you'd stop at a truck stop and buy a new one.
Those CMT awards are this weekend.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. So you're going to be there at that thing, right?
I will.
You're part of that world.
Yeah, there's several events leading up to it. They're
really?
doing, there's Keith Urban and Carrie Underwood are going to be on the stage at Congress and 9th downtown, I think with the Capitol in the background and such. And I think it's a cool move for CMT to come do the award show here. A lot of people have said, the CMAs. No, it's the Country Music Television Awards, which are usually in June, right before CMA Music Fest in Nashville.
Okay. CMA is the Country Music Association.
Yep.
You're a lifetime member?
I am.
No, what? It seems like that's some kind of distinguished honor to get that.
You have to be a member at least 10 years, and then they choose to offer you a lifetime membership. So it's kind of their choice. It's my understanding. Yeah. But I think it's really cool that you get to a point and it's like you're a lifetime member of the organization and such. Yeah.
It must be an honor to be in that situation, especially after having spent so much time in that world of music and now that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And, all my advance sheets and day sheets from 8 years of touring with BJ are actually in the Country Music Hall of Fame now.
Oh, that's awesome.
In his BJ Thomas archive, which is really cool. Because there's times I look at it. I mean, I grew up down a dirt road, a mile off the pavement, and I look at it sometimes and, look back. I think sometimes you're so focused on what's going on right now and moving forward.
Yeah.
You don't stop sometimes and look back and see, hell, it's been 31 years since I moved to Nashville. I moved to Nashville in 1992, but I'm in my 40th or 39th year in the music business. From the first time I played in a band.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Are you glad you didn't end up doing radio? Could you imagine, I'm thinking about all these different things you've done. If you would have just stuck in the one thing, how it would have ended up.
Yeah, I think about that sometimes too.
Don't you?
Yeah. I guess I would have hopefully ended up in a major market someplace.
Yeah.
But
or if you ended up some tech guy living in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. It's funny. It's, one little degree of change in your life 10 years later ends up being, something big.
Yeah.
And I kind of always felt like I just went where there was an opportunity, a better opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And it's like I was writing songs and barely making any money. And then I got the opportunity to work for a management company and work with some major artists and then go out on the road with BJ and, all these. I got offered the job for BJ, and he and I had known each other for about a year at that point, and his tour manager was leaving. They asked me if I wanted the job. I'm like, yeah. We travel the world together.
That's amazing.
It's these little, I kind of moved where I saw there were opportunities.
Are there times now that you miss the road?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But, I'll still go out a couple of times a year to sub for a tour manager.
Uh-huh.
And also too, there's a group called Scrap Metal that I started working with in 2008.
Yes.
And they do about 1 or 2 shows a year, and there hasn't been one since pandemic opened back, things opened back up, but I'll go out with them, and after a long weekend, you're like, yeah, I've scratched that itch.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get home. But I think once you get the road in you, it's like gypsy blood,
Yeah, it is.
It doesn't ever quite go away.
Yeah.
And I think part of that maybe is because my dad was a Delta pilot, so he traveled for a living.
Yeah.
And so it didn't seem strange to me that you would travel a lot.
Yeah. There's something about that, living in motion that is really beautiful, and you can get into that energy of being you're experiencing so much so fast in a condensed amount of time that it's very, very exciting and exhausting, but very exciting.
Yeah, it is. We always said that we did the show for free and got paid to travel.
Yeah.
But it's like I remember leaving Sao Paulo, Brazil one afternoon.
Yeah.
And it was about 98 degrees, 100 degrees, and 16 hours later, I landed in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It was minus 28, and it's changed planes twice. And I ended up in the UP,
And you ended up living in Brazil for a year?
Yeah, I was there for almost a year in 2006. So I got off the road with BJ, and there was a concert promoter down there that was like, man, come work down here. I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. It didn't work out, but it was a hell of an experience, though.
Is the Messina company that you were talking about earlier, it's Louis, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the Louis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What a legend that guy is.
Oh.
It's so funny now you read all these memoirs of artists and shit, and in the memoirs, like that Sammy Hagar one, he's like, I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for Louis.
Yeah.
Also, I just saw a documentary. Remember that band Triumph?
I love Triumph.
That their whole thing broke from like San Antonio.
I did not know that.
And I think it was Louis that gave them their thing.
Canadian band breaking in
Yeah.
San Antonio. I got to look up that documentary. I'm a huge music documentary fan.
Me too.
That's
I saw another one about the Texas Jam, and Louis in that one because that was his thing. I found it on YouTube.
Man, my parents wouldn't let me go to Texas Jam. I was a little too young. It was a little too wild for them. But I've heard stories.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's I'll send you the link.
Please.
I just
I wanna
saw it the
watch
other
both
day. I
of
watched it on YouTube. The Triumph one is on, you know that Access channel? Access?
Mm-hmm.
It's on there, I think.
I got to watch. I was always a big fan of Rick Emmett and his guitar playing.
Yeah.
And almost every album had an instrumental.
Yeah. A beautiful instrumental.
And we would sit at home, me and my brother and my other buddies that played guitar, and we would try to, work on these instrumentals. And
Yeah.
it's like Randy Rhoads with D, and that instrumental that was on the Blizzard of Oz,
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne album. It's just a classical guitar thing. It's in the middle of a heavy metal record. I always thought that was cool.
Amazing. Wasn't that for his mom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
sure
Randy.
was.
Mitch, is there anything I'm missing? I love that you're here, and I hope that I covered a lot of stuff about BMI and a lot of stuff of your life, but I'm sure you'll come back on again. I hope you will.
I hope so. I love this podcast, by the way.
thank
I
you.
have enjoyed in my 2-hour commute every day.
Oh, that's nice.
Listening and catching up on older episodes, and you were talking earlier about coming down here, and things like your podcast have helped me fill in gaps of the history down here and the people that I didn't know about yet. And so that's been a real educational
Thank you.
piece for me as well. So I'm like, I kind of know that person's name, but I really don't know them.
Yeah.
And don't know their history. And then I go listen to it, and that gives me a better understanding of the whole history here. It's versus just a name. And I think they played with this band and that band, but
Right.
hearing their whole story. And thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
And
I love it.
congratulations on having so many episodes. But, I guess in closing, we have an open door policy here. And, email us it's easy, austin@bmi.com.
Austin@bmi.com.
Yeah, and that's
I'll
a
put that
general
in the text,
inbox
too.
here, and then we'll get to me. And, we love getting to know songwriters. We signed a 13-year-old girl named Taylor Swift when nobody knew who she was. We signed a 16-year-old that goes by the name of Lady Gaga. When she was
Wow.
16, 17-year-old Samantha Cox up in New York and signed Stephanie, Lady Gaga. And so
Wow.
you never know who that next person is coming in to your door, and we love, meeting new people.
Yeah, and the
Our
opportunities.
existing BMI affiliates we haven't met yet.
Right. The opportunities that you create for the artists here too have been really great, and I see people like Poet Hawkins, who we both are huge fans of, and seeing just like his last year, he's kind of just been on this, like getting to play. He went from like coffee shop guy to like Luck Reunion. You know what I mean? Like in a matter of well, probably days, because he still does those shows, but like
Yep.
these opportunities that you've been able to give people are pretty incredible. So-
I love that piece of it. I was riding down the interstate with my wife, and I said, hey, I had an incoming call, and I said, all right, hung the phone up. I looked at my wife. I'm like, I need to make a quick call. I said, these are the kind of calls I love to make. I called up an artist and asked them if they'd like to play the BMI stage at ACL Fest, and they got choked up. It's a dream come true.
Yeah.
And to be able to find an artist, that has the talent.
Yeah.
And is ready. There's
Yeah.
a lot of stars that need to line up.
Yeah.
And you know that. You've been doing this a very, very long
Yeah.
time. The stars have to line up. Sometimes people aren't ready yet. And you just have to wait on that. And, to hear that in their voice, I love it.
That's amazing. What a great thing. I wrote this down because I thought that this was a really good place to end, is that BMI serves as advocate for the value of music.
Yes. And outside of what we've talked about, we have an office in Washington, D.C., and Michael Collins, in fact, he was down here last week because the legislative session is, the legislature's in session here
Yeah.
in Texas. and he deals with all that advocacy side of it. So behind the scenes, and sometimes front and center, BMI openly supported the Music Modernization Act. We support, copyright, law updates and other things that affect intellectual property and the songwriters, where we feel like we need to back it because it's a better move for songwriters. And so there's a huge advocacy side of it that we're always fighting to get songwriters more money.
Yeah.
And to do and help what is going to better a songwriter and publisher's career.
Yeah. And what an interesting time to be in it when you're in this sort of because I still think like we're in the front of this streaming music and what music's value will have monetarily. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do. Finally, we're in front of it.
Yeah.
Finally,
yeah, it was a little good. It got weird for a while.
Oh, it did. Yeah.
And everything changed so fast. Like I have an iPod still, and I have like an iPod dock that I keep next to my bed. But I mean, it's like one of those there's like 50,000 songs on there or something like that. Yeah. So, how long did I use that iPod? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it was only just a few years. It wasn't even 10 years.
Yeah. My first MP3 player had 256 meg, and I'm like, wow, I can fit 30 songs on this. Yeah. I can carry this on the airplane with me, and that was just like the coolest thing. Now look, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember going on tour, you'd have to take those books of CDs and, And then imagine there was a time before us where I guess you took a couple of 8-tracks with you.
You go back in the day, the tour buses had 8-track players.
Well, Mitch, people can find BMI at BMI.com. You want to meet Mitch. Anyone in Texas, like songwriters, people that write music in Texas.
We're based here, but we cover Texas.
Right. Austin at BMI.com.
That's it.
How often are you able to get to those other, like the Dallases and the Houstons and stuff?
A few times a year.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm usually up there.
You have events there or something?
I haven't done events yet, but I'm up there for events.
Nice.
I go up for usually Texas Country Music Association Awards. I go up. I have a thing in April coming up with the Country Music Hall of Fame that they're doing up there. And
cool.
The ACM Awards, the Academy of Country Music Awards, are in Frisco in May, I think May 9th, and I'm going to head up for those. But I've gone up for kind of various events that pop up.
Nice. Well, dude, I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you.
I enjoyed. I'm glad we did this, and we'll do it again sometime. I know we'll have more news to talk about in the months and years to come.
For sure. Thanks so much, Johnny.
Thanks for doing the show, man.
When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's all right.
All right, that was Mitch Ballard, Executive Director, Creative in Austin for BMI. Find them at BMI.com. And as I said, if you want to get in touch with Mitch, go to Austin at BMI.com. Go check out one of those songwriter series at Saxon. I've been to a couple of them. They're great. It's got great people. He's just a great dude. He's got great taste. He's very, very cool. He's very, very helpful in all kinds of ways. He's out there almost every night seeing shows, and he's a new dad. Anyway, I love hanging out with Mitch, love talking to him, love getting into his brain, love BMI, love what they do. Grateful to have those PROs out there in the world, especially BMI. All right? Go to BMI.com for all your BMI needs. All right, hey, gang, while you're out there checking out BMI.com, don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, anywhere. Apple Podcasts, new shows every Tuesday and every Friday. Share them on social media. Let me know. All right? Have a great week, whatever it is you're doing. Please have a great week. Let's get down.